Hello chess family, it's me National Master Jesse James. It's time today to go over 16 London system traps. Now we got this with white and black. Let's take a look. First one we're going to be taking a look at is D takes C5 trap. Here we go. We start off with D4, D5, Bishop F4, the coveted Bishop F4 making it a London system and not a Tory London, the Tory or the Collie. So Bishop F4 gets played. Knight to F6, pawn to E3. We're going to be making, of course, our little pyramid or our Christmas tree right here. Pawn to C5, one of the best ways to play against the D4 openings. Remember, the sooner you get the C5 and move to attack D4, the sooner you will get equality as black. With that being said, most of the time we're not going to be playing D takes C5, but obviously you're going to, obviously in this one, there's a reason why we're going to be doing this for the trap. Unfortunately for me, I've actually fallen for this trap way too many times, as it's a very simple setup here for black that can get you into trouble. All right, here we go. Pawn C3 gets played. Pawn to E6, Knight F3, Knight C6, Knight B to D2, Bishop D6. And this is a move that I'm always recommending here with black because remember, you're trying to control the E5 square right here, and that's exactly what white's trying to do too. So the fight over E5 has begun. And well, what does white do? Bishop back to G3, like most London system players know. We're not going to go ahead and trade off right away, as that just gets equality. And here we're hoping that they're going to take on G3 so we can take back with our H pawn, and now the H file is open so we can attack. Castles happens here. Bishop to D3, Queen to E7, and this is the start of the bad plan right here. Here there's many other moves that you can try to get a better position. With that being said, this Queen E7 makes sense because, well, you're defending your bishop, but you're trying to achieve this E5 move. And here, well, what do we play here as white to stop the E5 move from happening? Simple chess. You know we're going to be playing Knight to E5, Knight F to D7, and this is one of the mistakes in this position. At this point now, white is jumping up to a 30% win rate, and lots of people are falling for this trap. Here we go ahead and play Knight takes D7, and here, this is the last chance. Bishop takes D7 is incorrect. Here you have to play Queen takes D7, and now many people are going to want to play this because, well, here, yeah, white's just, I mean, why would you play Queen takes E7, right? It's just blocking your own bishop from getting out here. So, with that being said, here most people will play the Bishop takes D7, and now the trap has been sprung. Here we start with Bishop takes, Queen takes, and now we play the move D takes C5 here. Okay, why would we do this? Doesn't this just give black both pawns in the center here? It does, but after Queen takes C5, question mark move, the trap has been sprung. Here with 20 games, this has been played by many masters, and I can't even tell you how many people have fallen for this trap. I think it's been over like 1,600 just on Lead Chess alone that have fallen for this, and I don't even want to guess how much on chess.com and any other websites. But here it is white to move and win. If you want to, you can go ahead and push pause. Try to guess the trap here. It is a tough one. Here we go. Bishop takes on H7, check. I mean, if you don't take back, you're just losing, right? If the only other move would be something like King H8, and after Queen H5, well, game over. Bishop G6 check, and checkmate will be pretty soon to come. With that being said, I mean, why wouldn't you take this? King takes, and this is the whole idea. With the queen taking on C5 here, it is now unprotected, and we're going to get a nice tempo here. We start with Queen H5 check, King to G8, and now, well, this is the move that you'd have to spot a few moves back. The queen cannot checkmate by herself. We have to bring the knight over to the king side to help out. So what do you play? The beautiful move, Knight to E4. The idea being we get a free tempo off the queen because the pawn can't take, or else we take the queen. And here the knight is jumping over to G5 over here to attack on H7, as we know is the weak square. And here, well, there's many moves for black to try to play here, but in mostly every position is just going to be lost. Here, Queen E7 got played, and this is just giving up the queen right away. I will mention to you right here, whenever I tried this as black, unfortunately, I played Queen C4 with the idea that after Knight G5, here you just go Queen to D3, and well, you'll just get the queen back, and you're winning here. So this was obviously a miscalculation. White to move and win again. What do you play here to cut the queen off from defending the H7 square? Here, pawn to E4 gets played. Again, it's not going to be a checkmate here, but here white just gets too much for it. Rook F8, and now Rook to D1, and yeah, checks are happening here. The rook's coming into the game. You've got more than enough compensation. This bishop will be falling here too, if you want to, or you can just keep attacking. All right, back to the main game over here, where they played, let's see, we'll go back to the main game. King takes on H7, Queen H5 check, King back, Knight E4. Here in this game, it ends pretty abruptly, but I mean, it was already a lost game already. The Queen goes to E7, so here you just play Knight to G5. And, well, the best thing black can do here is just sacrifice the queen for the knight. But yeah, this ain't going to happen today. Rook to e8, and now a simple checkmate in 2. h7 check, king f8, and checkmate. All right, let's go on to the next one. Here we have another d takes c5 move. Again, this is not a move that many players as black are really expecting. And this one, we're going to be winning the exchange. Here we go. d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6. Another very popular way to play against the London system. Typically, it does transpose into these e6 lines. Later on, we'll be taking a look when black plays g6 or goes King's Indian defense against the London system. Bishop f4, here we go, it's a London system now. Pawn c5, like I said, I highly recommend this move as black, as trying to get equality as soon as possible. Pawn to e3, knight c6, knight b to d2, bishop to f5, and this is the problem. A lot of times what happens is black tries to play the anti-London system opening, and well, when this happens, the b7 pawn becomes unprotected. So if you are a London system player, you'll know good ideas here are going to be playing something like c4. With that being said, there is another very strong move here to play for white. What is that? This is the time we go ahead and play d takes on c5. I remember looking at this with another one of my friends, Sean, and he was studying the London system pretty hard. He said, yeah, this is a mistake. And I was like, really? So d takes c5 here, how is this bad? You know, black has two good moves here, e6, or maybe just play the rook over to c8. Of course, e6 got played to win the pawn back right away. And this was the key move that I missed, and this is why it's a very well-known trap, at least with the good London players. White's move, what do you play? Simple chess, you play knight to d4 here. And many people are just going to play bishop back to g6 without thinking too much. They're just going to say, well, you know what? I'll be able to win the c5 pawn right away. And of course, you know, black could take on d4, but this is just bad as after pawn takes, well, now the pawn's being defended. And, well, what else can you do? Well, you don't want to allow, I mean, I guess you could play bishop takes c5. This apparently is equality, but I don't like this very much as black, as after knight takes f5, pawn takes, white can claim the bishop pair right here, and also the pawn structure in the center is messed up, plus an isolated pawn. All right, so most people here are just going to play bishop g6 without thinking too hard, and this is where it's at. Bishop to b5. Here, the idea is to take on c6. Well, how do you defend against this? Here, you'd actually have to play something like queen to c8 here. And again, white's just better here. They're going to be able to hold on to their pawn with pawn b4 and c3. And here, well, the common chess player is going to play, again, without thinking too fast and play rook to c8. And now, well, you can win the rook by force. White to move. What do you play here? Again, feel free to push pause if you want to. Simple chess here. We need to open up the diagonal because you can see this bishop's controlling the dark squares. Now maybe we can control the light squares with our bishop. How do we open up this diagonal? Knight takes on c6, pawn takes, bishop to a6, and this rook is just trapped. They went ahead and played rook a8, just a waste of time here. Bishop b7, rook to b8, and well, let's be a little bit mean here. Bishop takes on c6 check here, and we'll grab this rook next move over here. Again, another d takes c5 trap. All right, let's go on to the next one. The Greek gift, one of my favorite ones. Here we go. d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, pawn to e3, pawn to c5, pawn c3, knight c6, knight d2, e6, knight f3, bishop to d6. Again, challenging this dark square bishop. Here, bishop goes to g3, castles, and the bishop goes to d3. This is what it's all about over here. Whenever they castle, the h7 pawn is the weakness. Again, the London system is going for a kingside attack. With that being said, we need to keep the center closed. Here, black went ahead and played pawn b6, and well, this turns out to be very bad. Here we can just open up the game right away with pawn to e4. And here, why would we play this? Well, we're actually trying to get rid of this knight as it's one of the main defenders for h7. Here we go. Pawn takes on e4, knight takes, bishop takes, and now we got a nice little double attack on h7 and the knight here on c6. And here white does a very clever thing. They're going to get a free tempo because of this knight. Well, black played the standard move here. Bishop to b7. And yes, this is the idea. h7, d6, and b7. How are these the ideas? Well, here you can see there's an x-ray attack on the bishop already. Anytime a piece is already attacked once, you can almost kind of consider them as an unprotected piece. Because if we had our second piece, well then it's a double attack on it and it's actually hanging. And the same thing goes, well, b7's unprotected, so it's a hanging piece. And h7 is the weak square. Here, if you want to, you can push pause and try to guess the following moves. The idea is to get the queen maneuvered over to the king's side. But the knight's kind of in the way here. What do you do? Well, here some people will try the ideas about knight g5, so they go h4. It's an idea, but if you play h4 now black's more than happy to take on g3. F takes, and now, well, your pawn structure's messed up, and, well, the rook is not going to be opened up anytime soon. So here, white comes with a very nice idea. They start off with, oops, go back one more move, sorry about that. We go ahead and start with D takes on C5. Now with the double attack, because now the bishop is being attacked. And, well, bishop takes on C5. And this is a reasonable move here because, well, if the bishop did take on G3, well, then white's just doing better here, as after H takes on G3, now we have an attack on H7 and also the pawn on B6. Here, white's just going to be up an extra pawn here. And here, computer's saying, let's just play pawn to H6. For those thinking, can't we just take on D1 check? You can, but again, you're just losing a pawn here because after rook takes D1, the double threat is now on H7 and also the pawn taking over here. Try to play something like F5. We'll just take on C6, bishop takes, and a simple move here is pawn takes on B6 just to be up the extra pawn. But, well, knight E5 is a little bit stronger here. Don't we just take on G2? You do, but this bishop's just going to find no home here. In fact, this is going to be part of the Carlsen trap that we'll see later on. Good knight versus bad bishop. Anyways, back to the game. Bishop takes on C5 got played. And here, this was the maneuver that you were trying to figure out. Here again, I mentioned this knight was kind of weak. We go queen to A4. Queen to C8. It looks like a good move defending this rook. But here, well, guess what time it is? It's Greek gift time. Bishop takes on H7 check. King takes on H7. Queen H4 check. King G8. And knight to G5. Again, looking to attack on this H7 point, which is very hard, if not impossible, to defend. The game ends pretty fast here. Rook to D8. Queen H7 check. King to F8. Queen H8 check. King E7. Queen takes G7. And, well, after rook F8, white went ahead and just castled, and black threw in the towel. As you can see that the queens are all mashed up over here on the queen side. They're not going to be helping out. This king is pretty much just looking terrible. He really can't move anywhere here. The F7 point's weak. Yeah, bishop H4. There's just so many ideas here that I understand completely why black would just throw in the towel here. It's a plus 5 position here with no good ideas to defend. All right, on to the next one. We got another Greek gift idea. Greek gift number 2. Here we go. Here we start off again with D4, D5, bishop F4, knight F6, knight F3, knight C6. Already we know that our opponent's not the most skilled player here because, well, they play knight C6. Remember, a good skilled player will play the pawn to C5. This is one of the best ways to fight against the London system. Pawn to E3 gets played. Bishop to G4. Again, be careful with bringing your bishop out, as this can become a target, as it does in this game. And, well, B7 becomes weak too. So here, a lot of times, we're going to play this pawn to C4 move. This is one of the exceptions whenever you're playing the London system. But here, white went ahead and played bishop D3. Pawn to E6, pawn to C3. White just kept it nice and simple. Bishop B7. Again, not the best move here. Challenge the center. Bishop D6 should get played. Knight B to D2. Castles. Castles. Knight to E4. I can't explain why black went ahead and did this, but, well, it's a free pawn. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes. Now we have the undefended bishop, and this is where the idea is going to come from. Here, black played queen to D7, H4. A weird-looking move, but this is setting up the Greek gift. And here, black is just nice and plays bishop to D6. White to move. It's Greek gift time. What do we play? Here we go. Just like whenever the Greeks were fighting with the Trojan War, they sent in that knight. Here we go. Bishop takes on H7 check. King takes on H7. And here it's all about this undefended bishop. Knight to G5 check. King to G8. Queen takes G4. And here a +7 position because, again, no good way to defend against this king side. Bishop takes on F4. Pawn takes on F4. I can definitely understand this move as it's going to open up the E file. And here I don't want to lose access for my queen to get into H5 as soon as possible. Queen to D6 got played, threatening to win a pawn if the queen goes to H5. Does that scare me? Not today. Here, Queen H5 gets played anyways. Rook to E8. And here, well, good technique. White to move and win. What do you play? All right, I hear someone saying, go ahead and play Queen H7 check. This is actually not the best move here. After Queen H7 check, King F8, Queen H8 check, King E7, Queen takes G7. Is White winning here? Yes, they are, but notice that when we took on G7, this was not a check. So here we do it the correct way when you're doing this Greek gift idea. After the rook goes to E8, we go ahead and play Queen takes on F7 check. Why does this matter? Well, as in the last variation, when we played Queen takes G7, it wasn't check. Here, well, it's just going to be winning for us now. King goes back. Now we repeat Queen H5 check, King G8, Queen H7 check, King E8, King F8, Queen H8 check, King E7, and now when we take on G7, it's now going to be in check. The king went to d8 here, and well, simple chess here. You could look for some more winning ideas, but the simplest one is just knight f7 check here, winning the queen. And here, after king c8, knight takes d6, black threw in the towel yet again. All right, guys, now it's time for a nice positional trap with Carlsen, and this is Carlsen's trap. Well, I mean, we kind of saw this idea before, but this is more heading toward that good endgame, as I preluded. I believe it was in the, I think it was the second game. All right, here we go. So d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, c5, one of the best ways to play. Here we got two grandmasters playing. This is from the 2016 World Blitz Championship. Pawn c3, knight c6, knight d2, e6, knight f3, bishop d6. Of course, the grandmaster is going to be playing the most challenging line and trying to control this e5 square. Bishop back to g3, castles, bishop to b5. Again, this is a positional idea. The idea is to get rid of this knight so that we can get the knight to e5. Okay. The knight went to e7, saying, I don't want this to happen. And the idea was to play something like knight f5, knight g6. I've experimented with this. I will say, as far as it goes with white, this is not something you should be intimidated at all by. Bishop went back to d3 since the knight's gone. We're going to put this bishop to a better diagonal and attack this weak square on h7 again. Pawn b6, and this turns out to be another little weakness. As we saw last time, the idea was to put pressure on this bishop with a d takes c5. Okay, here we go. White goes ahead and plays pawn e4 as last time. D takes, knight takes. If they don't take, we just take on f6, giving him a weakness. Knight takes, bishop takes, free tempo off the rook. The rook now goes to b8, and hopefully now you remember what was the key move here for white to play. All right, hopefully you remember. Here we're going to go ahead and play d takes c5, and this is the problem. With the rook here on b8, now we see that this is actually pinned. Black has no better choice but to go into a very bad endgame. So he went ahead and played. Bishop takes, h takes. Now we see that h7 is a weak square again. Black tries to play for it with pawn f5. And here, a very nice idea by Carlsen. You can go ahead and push pause here to see if you can find the best way to move forward. You have to think at least 4 moves ahead here. Or hopefully you push pause. Hopefully you see the best way to push forward. As I said, this is a good endgame, so hopefully you guys were calculating. Queen takes, rook takes. And this is the move that you should find. Pawn to c6 exclam. The idea is very simple here. The pawn is being defended by the bishop. And here we're threatening pawn to c7. Okay. Knight to d5, trying to guard this c7 point. Unfortunately, this doesn't work. Here we just go ahead and play bishop takes, rook takes. Of course, if you had taken back with the pawn, c7 gets played. So, rook takes d5, rook to d1. Here, Carlsen knows that this is just a winning pawn over here, so he's just going to make some trades. This bishop and rook are just bad right now. This endgame is just lost. Rook takes, king takes. Bishop to a6, saying desperately, please let me into the game. Of course, as we know, Carlsen is a big chess bully, and he's not going to be allowing this. Knight to e5, it's good knight versus bad bishop. Especially with a good passed pawn over here, the game ends really fast. Rook c8, pawn c4, beautiful move right here. Passed pawns must be pushed. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns versus the 2. So here Carlsen's just being is going to be getting 2 passed pawns. Pawn to b5, and I love this move right here. Pawn to b4. Isn't this just a free pawn? It is if you're not thinking. Pawn takes on c4, pawn a4, and now we see the idea of b5. The king is just going to run up here, win the pawn, and now we have these 2 passed pawns in the future that are going to be made. This a pawn, well, this b pawn will be traded for the a pawn after building up, and 2 passed pawns here. Easy win. Rook d8 check, king c2. Rook to d5, trying to kick this knight from its great square. And, well, pawn f4, and black just resigns. Again, king c3, pawn b5 is coming. You can even trade off the rooks here. This is good knight versus bad bishop. This bishop does not control any critical squares. All right, it's time for the Jabava's trap. And, well, unfortunately, I have fallen for this way too much, especially because I play against the London system, and I'm playing black, and we're playing bullet over here. This trap has been fallen for over 7,000 times on League Chess alone. With that being said, this is mostly due to bullet games or blitz games where people are just playing way too fast. And although you can try this over the board in a long time control, I don't think it'll work out too well, especially because it was on the rage recently. So I feel like everyone knows this trap, but here we go. D4, knight f6, bishop f4, e6, knight f3, c5. A nice way here to not play the d5 point too soon and keep your opponent guessing about what pawn structure you're going to choose. There is ways about playing d6 and b6 here and keeping the pawn structure a little bit more stable and using your pawn to control the e5 square. Pawn e3 got played, knight to c6, knight c3, and well, this is the Jobava London right here. Instead of playing the pawn to c3 and bringing your knight out nice and slow, the knight goes to c3 right here to be a little bit more active. Now, against a good player, like I said, this is not the best way to play because a good chess player will just be able to stop this London, and this is already an equal position here for black. With that being said, if black's not paying attention or playing a bullet game, they could play d5 right away, and now it is white to move and win. It all has to do with this knight on c3. White to move, what do you play here? Simple chess. Here you go ahead and play knight to b5, and this was the mistake with d5 here. You didn't see the simple move of knight b5 threatening on c7 check. Like I said, I've fallen for this too many times, not because I don't know it, but because I'm playing too fast. I'm not expecting these kind of simple knight b5 moves. And well, at this point, it's already +3 advantage, and white's just going to have a bad game here because they can't really stop the check on c7, and the rook is just going to be bad. The only thing you could do here is move your king somewhere, and with your king in the center in the middle game, it's not going to go too well. With that being said, guys, if you want to stop this trap, it's not too hard. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I'll recommend just a simple pawn to a6, and it's going to be killing this idea of knight to b5, and yeah, it's just going to be an equal game now. All right, on to the next game. Here we go, bishop a6 idea. Another very similar idea as trying to attack the rooks. All right, here we go. We start off with d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, knight f3, c5. Good way to start off. e3, knight c6, knight b to d2. Bishop g4, and as again, I will always tell people, be very careful about bringing your bishop out because now the b7 pawn can become weak. And in this game, that's exactly what happens. Pawn c3 gets played, pawn to a6, and now an interesting move here, queen to a4. Black was probably thinking, what is this about? And this, not only does this pawn on b7 become weak, but this diagonal becomes weak because after e6, the bishop cannot move back. And here, well, black should go ahead and just trade off here on f3. Unfortunately, black did not see the idea and played bishop d6, and now white to move and get a winning position. Well, if you read the idea, you'll probably guess the move. Here it is, bishop to a6 here. Boom, here we go. What's the idea here? Well, we can't take back right away because if we do take, well, we take on c6 check here. The bishop is being attacked again, so black has to play something like king to e7, queen b7 check, and oof, queen to d7, bishop takes on d6. This is just going bad here. We're probably not going to trade queens as soon as possible, but here you're winning at least a pawn in this position. And I think it's pretty easy to see that black is just on bad footing here. So after this bishop to a6, how does black try to defend? It's really hard here because even if you try something like rook b8, what do you play? Remove the defender, bishop takes on b7. So either way, this is just one of those strong moves or strong ideas that's really hard to get out of. All right, well, back to the game, bishop a6. Bishop took on f4, trying to get out of this. And here's simple chess. Bishop takes on b7. No, we're not going to take back on f4. We're either going to win this rook or win this knight over here. It depends on what black plays. Here in the game, black went ahead and castled. And here, a very nice move. Bishop takes on c6. Yes, you could take the rook on a8 here, but here after queen takes on a8, now they got a choice over here. It's always best to let them sweat. So after bishop takes on b7 here, castles, bishop takes on c6. The bishop is still hanging, and also this rook here on a8. And well, after bishop d6 got played, d takes c5, bishop takes on a8. Black is just down. It's a +5 position, meaning you're basically up a rook here. White has no weaknesses in this position. White went on to win this game. All right, on to the next one. This is a very cool one. This one is the queen trap. It's pretty hard to see how you can get your queen trapped. Let's take a look. Here we go, d4, knight f6, bishop f4, g6. This is our first time we'll be taking a look when black is playing this King's Indian defense. Pawn to e3, bishop g7, knight f3, d6, knight b to d2, castles, pawn to h3. A nice little move here in this King's Indian setup, stopping the bishop from going to g4 and just trading off. As I mentioned previously, this slide square bishop can be a problem, so we definitely want to trade these off as soon as possible. So white takes a second here and plays h3. Knight b to d7, and here white makes the interesting move here, bishop c4. And this can go good or bad for you. Black can try to get tempo here with pawn to d5, although e5 square does become weak. But here in the game, probably the reason why white even tried this, black makes the critical mistake and plays rook to e8. All right, white to move and win. Can he find it? Remember, I do encourage you to push pause. Here we find the very nice move. Bishop takes on f7. Apparently, this has been played over 700 times, so please take advantage of this nice little trap if they do try this King's Indian defense. Bishop takes on f7 checker, at least winning the rook. I mean, it's really hard for black to not take this bishop. So king takes, and now, simple chess, knight g5 check, king to g8, knight e6, and the queen is just trapped within its own pawns. It's basically a smothers queen mate. We've mated the queen over here, and the queen cannot escape. All right, on to the next one, the f7, h7 weakness. This is one that we kind of saw in one of the first games I went over, at least for the lessons of how to play the London system. Here we go. d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, bishop f4, e6, pawn to e3, bishop d6, challenging this e5 square, bishop g3, castles, bishop g3, c5, c3, knight c6, knight b to d2, rook to e8, and again, as I had mentioned, playing the rook e8 is a bad idea. Black is trying to get the pawn to e5 here, and this is a good idea. Unfortunately, when you move your rook over, well, white's just going to play that thematic move, which is knight e5, stopping your idea. So now your rook doesn't do anything here on this file, and you've made the f7 pawn weak. All right, black goes ahead and plays queen to c7. White plays pawn to f4, just making sure this knight is nice and tighty-whitey. It's not going to be moving anywhere. Of course, black never really wants to trade because, well, it only helps a pawn into the center. Knight to d7, and here we go. It is trap time. White to move. What do you play here? All right, hope you push pause. Hope you try to figure it out. Here we're going to play it. Remember, when you're looking for traps, checks, captures, and threats, and always look for unprotected pieces. Here we go. Bishop takes h7 check, king takes, queen h5 check, king g8, queen takes on f7 check, king h8, and here we simply snag the rook, and, well, nice and happy here. All right, let's take a look at the fishing pole trap. Here, this is done in many different openings, so, well, why can't we do it with the London system? The answer, we can. d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, knight f3, knight c6. Again, not one of the best ways to play. You need to get c5 in to attack the d4 square. e3, e6, bishop d3, bishop d7, pawn c3, bishop e7. Another very bad move here. I mean, these are nice signals for white that they're probably going to be winning this game because they're missing the strategic concepts of c5 and e5. Knight b to d2, castles, and here white goes in and plays queen c2. Here, definitely white's saying, you know what, I might castle queenside over here, and I'm definitely having some aggressive tendencies. h6 got played, h4, and this is the start of the fishing pole trap. Here you might be thinking, why did h4 get played? Well, this is played right after black plays this h6 move. Why? Here we go. Black played bishop d6, saying, hey, let's make some trades over here, and now it's time for the fishing pole trap. What do you play? Let's go fishing for a fish. Knight to g5 here. Now, is this a forced move? No. In fact, if black plays e5 here, he's actually in a better position. With that being said, we were fishing for a fish. Here we go. H takes g5 here. H takes g5, and the whole idea is to open this h file, and the game is over very soon. Knight to g4. It's checkmate in 3. Feel free to push pause if you want to try and figure it out. All right, hopefully you did. Hopefully you tried to figure this out. It's a very simple one. The idea is to get the queen to h7. But wait a second, the bishop's in the way. Clarence sacrifice time. Here we go. Check, check, and now it's a double check. So it doesn't even matter how you defend here. If you play the knight back, it's still going to be queen to h7 checkmate. If you play the king takes on g8, again, it's just going to be check and mate. A clearance, a sacrifice. All right, we've looked at a lot of ideas for this London system with traps for white. It's time for black. A lot of these ones deal with the pawns, and they're not that too deep. With that being said, you can try them out against London players and see if you can trap them with these London system traps. Here we go. d4, knight f6. This is the pawn fork. Bishop f4, c5. I play this myself, although most of my opponents won't fall for this one. A good London player knows they need to play pawn to e3 here. Here, white makes a mistake and goes knight to f3. Well, c takes d4, and here white, well, played knight takes d4, double question mark. Here you have to play queen takes d4. Why? Well, after knight takes d4, here we actually have a nice trap here. I actually first figured this out when I was playing the Sicilian defense, as it's transposing right now. Black to move, what do you play? Here we get the amazing pawn to e5 fork. Doesn't the bishop just take here? Of course it does. Remember, always look for checks, captures, and threats. So after bishop takes on e5, queen e5 check, it's game over here. We just won this bishop for free, and typically this is very easy. Although it looks like white might have some compensation here with the extra development, it does not work out at all. All right, time for pawn fork number 2. This one is a little bit more linear with just trying to harass this bishop, or the London bishop as we call it. So d4, g6, bishop to f4, bishop to g7, e3, d6, knight f3, knight to d7, bishop to d3, pawn to b6. Here black is not really playing a king's Indian setup. It's just like a kind of a double fianchetto idea. Although with the g6 we would qualify it as a king's Indian defense. Castles happens over here. Bishop to b7, pawn to c3, and here I do want to mention, as a London player against the fianchetto, the bishop should be going to e3 and not to d3. Okay, pawn e5 gets played, and this is the trap. Pawn takes, you get a free tempo off the bishop when it moves. Well, what do you play here? Pawn f6, and now after this bishop moves over here, h4, now we just get to play the pawn to e4, and black is up an extra piece. All right, here we go. It's now time for black's pawn storm. Again, we're going to be harassing this London bishop. We go ahead and try this idea out. d4, d5, bishop f4, and h5. Already something should be going off in your head, like what is going on over here? This is the start to trying to trap this bishop. e3 gets played, and already it is a forced win, or a forced better position here for black. Black to move, what do you play? A nice little trappy move here. You should definitely try this h5 idea out. Here you get to play pawn to e5. It does not matter which way you take back. Either way, this bishop is going to be trapped. For instance, in the game, bishop takes e5 got played. But of course, if you just go ahead and, well, let's say we take with the pawn. g5 gets played, bishop g3 and h4. Same thing happens after bishop takes on e5. What do you play? f6, bishop f4, g5, bishop g3, and h4 again. And it is trapped. All right, here we go. The England trap. This is a very famous one to play, and this one can be done against the London system because, well, we're going to get a free tempo off that London bishop. d4, e5. Okay, what's going on right here? The England gambit gets played. D takes on e5. Here, of course, this is better for white, but you do know the best way. You do need to know the best way to defend against this. Here, knight c6 got played to defend the pawn. Knight to f3, queen to e7. A nice little move here attacking the e5 pawn. And here white plays bishop to f4 because, well, we were playing a London system. And here black has a nice idea. Queen b4 check, a double attack on the bishop and the unprotected b2 pawn. Here white played bishop d2. Queen takes on b2. Bishop to c3. And here this is the decisive mistake. Here for white, they just got to play something like knight c3 and realize it's not all about the material, but it's also about developing your pieces. Here white's just much better because the queen is off sides and, well, other pieces are out. White has a superior development and a better position. With that being said, when bishop c3 got played, develop with a threat, we go ahead and play bishop to b4 exclam. Okay? Queen to d2 gets played to try and defend. Of course, if you do take on b4, black has two good moves here. You can simply take on a1 right away, or even stronger here, knight takes on b4, because now with the right knight takes on c2 here. The only move to try and defend this is going to be knight a3, giving up the free piece here. So here, white goes ahead and tries queen to d2, and now we just have a forced win here. Bishop takes on c3, and most people here are just going to play queen takes c3 without even thinking about it. And here, black to move and win. Queen to c1 for check and mate. I will add in real quick that if knight takes on c3, you simply just take the free rook. That's why most people here don't think. They just play queen takes c3 because they're thinking, I got to take back and defend the rook, and queen c1 is check and mate. All right, two more. A checking idea. Here we go. Very standard idea. I've even seen this in the Grob attack. So d4, knight f6, bishop f4. Again, this London bishop is the target. c6, a weird looking move. Pawn to e3, pawn to g5. Is this a free pawn? Of course it's not. Whenever you think your opponent's being nice to you, they are not. Here, bishop to g3, and white is actually just doing better here because of the messed up pawn structure. But here we take a look at the bad idea. Bishop takes on g5. Black to move and win. What do you play here? Simple chess, undefended piece. We look for checks. Queen to a5 check, and well, it doesn't matter how they defend. Queen takes on g5. All right, now time for our last one. The last one we're going to do here is trapping the queen, one of my favorite ones. I love some queen traps. We go d4, knight f6, bishop f4, London system, d5, pawn to e3, pawn to c5. As we know, this is one of the best ways for black to play. Pawn c3, knight c6, bishop to d3, and apparently this is a little inaccurate here because we can get free tempos with something like pawn to c4. Now we're not going to do this right away, but it's in our bag to play. Here black plays queen to b6. Just like whenever black brings out the light square bishop too early, the b7 becomes weak. Here the same thing goes. Here black plays the same idea against them. When the bishop comes out, the b2 pawn becomes weak. So queen b6 gets played. queen to c2. You will see some people go queen to b3 here, and here black will just go pawn c4. And after queen takes, pawn takes, black is in a much better position here because he's got the good rook file, and b5, b4 typically gets played to open up this game and get a nice attack on the queen side. And of course, the bishop has to lose a tempo because it has to move again. In the game, after queen c2, here's the free tempo. Pawn to c4 gets played. Okay, bishop to e2, and here we're going to go ahead and say bishop to f5 exclam. Well, wait a second. Can't the queen just take over here? Well, if queen takes on f5 over here, we lure the queen away. Queen takes on b2, and well, we have the winning of the rook right here. So here, technically speaking, white can just play queen c1, and black is slightly better here. But this is a nice trap that some people will play, luring the queen away. I got that a little bit mixed up. This was not a queen trap. This was just a lure. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more videos on the London system, I will be having a good series on this. We'll see you in the next video.